We spoke last time of mother's experience when she first met Sri Aurobindo, how all her mental constructions, her ideas of the future of the world, the work to be done, all the things that she had nurtured over the years, they were all wiped out, and her mind became a clean slate, absolutely silent, a, a thing for which she had worked hard but had not succeeded in achieving. She remarks that she did not ask Sri Aurobindo for it, nor perhaps he meant to do it, but it happened. So the whole mind was completely possessed, as it were, by silence. And it was only slowly, after days and days, that something started gathering above the mind. The truth started forming and took its station there permanently. And thereafter, she never functioned from the mind, but always from that status of truth above her mind. This capital experience took place on the 29th of March, 1914. There is an interesting entry in her diary dated April 13, a fortnight later, which describes her state. It is important for us because it is in her own words. She says, "It seems to me that I am being born into a new life, and that all the methods, the habits of the past can no longer be of any use. It seems to me that what I thought were results were nothing more than a preparation. I feel as if I have done nothing yet, as though I have not lived the spiritual life, only entered the path that leads to it. It seems to me that I know nothing, that I am incapable of formulating anything, that our experience is yet to begin. It is as though I were stripped of my entire past, of its errors as well as its conquests, as though all that has vanished and made room for a newborn child whose whole existence is yet to be lived, who has no karma, no experience to learn from, but no error either which has to be set right. My head is empty of all knowledge and all certitude, but also of all vain thought. I feel that if I learn how to surrender without any resistance to the state, if I do not try to know or understand, if I consent to be completely like an ignorant and candid child, some new possibility will open before me. I know that I must now definitively give myself up and be like an absolutely blank page on which thy thought, thy will, O Lord, can be inscribed freely without danger of any deformation. An immense gratitude rises from my heart. It seems to me that I have at last reached the threshold I sought so much. Grant, O Lord, that I may be sufficiently pure, impersonal, animated with thy divine love, to be able to cross it definitively. Oh, to belong to thee without any darkness, without any restriction. You will note that she speaks here of an effort to be made to surrender. In fact, I do not remember if I mentioned it last time, when Sri Aurobindo was asked about his reaction to Mother during the first meeting, he said that I had never seen such a perfect surrender in the physical. That is, it is possible to surrender entirely in the mind, in the emotions, but he said in the physical that it was possible to that extent. He had no idea. That's what he told those around at that time, and again repeated to his brother Barin Ghosh when he asked him, when he returned from Andamans. Mother has written in her diary about her reactions to her meeting with you at the first time. What were your reactions? And then he spoke of this perfect surrender. That is one. I mentioned that as soon as they came, they halted at Grand Hotel, which is also known as Megri's, and later they shifted to Duplex House. Duplex House is the house behind the dining room, facing north, where the archives department is located at the moment. And it was there that Mother and Paul Richard lived, very close to the guest house where Sri Aurobindo lived with the few boys that were living with him. Very close. And every day, Mother used to walk up to the guest house to meet Sri Aurobindo between 4 and 4:30 in the afternoon, and she would usually bring with her some sweet prepared of coconut. And it was only on Sundays that Sri Aurobindo would go to where she lived in the afternoon, and they would have dinner. Mother would serve dinner. Nolini and all these people who were with him joined there on Sundays. I forgot to mention that when she came to guest house every day, bringing the sweet, she would prepare for him either cocoa or some drink. And later, say about 5 o'clock, Nolini and all others would go to play football, and then Paul Richard would come and join the company. That was the daily routine. Paul Richard, as I said, had come for a political purpose, ostensibly. First time he came really for political propaganda, but this time he made it an occasion and he came with mother. He had come for electioneering. Electioneering was one of his purposes, and it took him to Karikal. Mother accompanied him there, and she describes how it was a very, very dilapidated place where they had to stay. It was a paradise for white ants. It was dark. That was poorer and much worse than anything she had experienced in Pondicherry. That was in Karikal. And Paul Richard, he was completely overwhelmed by the personality of Sri Aurobindo. He was to give an outstanding tribute to Sri Aurobindo later during his stay in Japan. And there he declared, "The hour is coming of great things, of great events, and also of great men, the divine men of Asia. All my life I have sought for them across the world. For all my life I have felt they must exist somewhere in the world, that this world would die if they did not live, for they are its light, its heat, its life. It is in Asia that I have found the greatest among them, the leader, the hero of tomorrow. He is Aurobindo Ghosh." That was his celebrated tribute to Sri Aurobindo. Very soon, Mother describes elsewhere how there used to be very spirited discussions between Richard and Sri Aurobindo on how this creation has come to be, what is the purpose. Paul Richard had it, would say that the world is here because of the will of God. But Sri Aurobindo would say no, it is because the creation has come out of the joy of God. It is out of joy that this creation has come to be. And so they would argue, they would talk. And one day, Paul Richard proposed to Sri Aurobindo, let us have a synthesis of knowledge, all knowledge that had come down, knowledge that is to come. And Sri Aurobindo said, all right, let us synthesize. In a letter to Dilip Kumar Roy later, Sri Aurobindo mentioned that when Richards proposed to him to start this journal, English and French, for enunciating the new knowledge, he felt that as a yogi, he had to accept everything, any work. And so it was natural for him to accept the proposal of Richard. And the Arya was started in August, Sri Aurobindo's birthday, August 15, the first issue was out. Mother herself maintained in her hand a list of subscribers. She kept the accounts. And one room downstairs of duplex house was used as a storeroom, stock room. And one room in the guest house downstairs was used as the office room. And it seems Sri Aurobindo's idea was that they should have 1,000 subscribers in India and about 250 in France. It was very cheap. I believe it was half a rupee. And Sri Aurobindo started a series of parallel subjects. And for the French edition, Mother helped Richard to translate them in French. However, the World War broke out very soon, and the Richards had to return to France because, there is conscription in France. And after 7 issues, the French edition had to stop. But Sri Aurobindo says that he had to continue doing all the 64 pages of close print every month. It appears that every month on the 15th, Mother would carry the typed sheets to the modern press and hand them over. And Sri Aurobindo was so particular of the accuracy that he would go through the proofs as many as 4 to 5 times. Once, we understand that there was a sort of a commotion. The pressman brought the proofs late, and Amrita, who later became the manager, he was loudly castigating the pressman for having delayed the proofs. Hearing the commotion, Sri Aurobindo came out and he asked what was the matter. Then it was explained to him that the man was late, that the man was drinking, and he was not punctual. Then Sri Aurobindo told Amrita that you shall not interfere in his personal life. He has a freedom to drink or not to drink. Our contract with him is to get the proofs regularly. You have only to enforce that. Don't interfere with his life. Naturally, our man felt sheepish, but nothing would be done. And when the first Arya issue came, Dr. Annie Besant, the celebrated leader of the Theosophical movement, is reported to have said that she had never seen such a flood of inspiration all her life. And she herself was an inspired speaker and a very capable writer. That was the Arya. It continued for 6.5 years and it stopped in 1921. Somebody said that it was a financial liability. Sri Aurobindo says it was not. It paid its way. But he had to stop because he felt he had spread himself out too much. It was explained that humanity at its highest mind was not ready for more knowledge. He observed during his evening conversations that even if he had continued writing for he wrote 7 times more than what he had done. He would not have exhausted even 1/10 of the knowledge that came to him. Knowledge that came to him. He observes that the knowledge did not come from the intellect, though it was for the intellect. He had to expound the philosophy for the intellect. He noted elsewhere, when somebody said that he was writing philosophy, he said, life divine is not a philosophy, it is a fact. I have to present it to the modern mind, and the modern mind is a rational mind. He also wrote to Motilal Roy from Chandranagar that the Arya, the intellectual side of my work for the world. His work was many-sided, and the Arya was the intellectual. It appears every day in the afternoon, he would sit on typewriter. It is still preserved in the Smriti, very carefully preserved, the Remington machine which he used. And what has come in the Arya went straight into the typewriter. He did not write, he did not draft. Mother says, Sri Aurobindo's consciousness was above. It was not in the mind at that time. But what formed the words was the consciousness in his hands. He became aware of the words only as they were expressed. Till then, he was not aware. From the intellectual standpoint, the Arya is perfect. This is Mother's words. From the intellectual viewpoint, the Arya is perfect. Clarity, order, logic, and yet the mind had nothing to do with it. There is an interesting story that before starting his typing, he would wait for a cup of tea. And Mrinalini's cousin, Sovereign, he was in charge of supplying the tea. As things went, he was not too particular of the timings. At times he would go to sleep, at times he would be somewhere doing something else. But one day, Sri Aurobindo was waiting, and the tea did not come at all. So he was wondering what time the tea would come. And then he saw on the wall, in golden clock hands, 4, means the tea would come at 4 o'clock. And exactly at 4, the tea arrived. That is what we have heard. And so the Arya was the main occupation. And the first issue of the Arya, we spoke of the intellectual side of the work. There was another side. Now this work pertains to mother's work. A note was printed in the first issue of the Arya. In close connection with the intellectual work of synthesis undertaken by this review, a society has been founded in French India under the name of Idée Nouvelle, New Idea. Its object is to group in a common intellectual life and fraternity of sentiment those who accept the spiritual tendency and idea it represents, and who aspire to realize it in their own individual and social action. The Idée Nouvelle has 2 rules only for its members. First, to devote some time every day for meditation and self-culture. The second, to use or create daily at least one opportunity of being helpful to others. These were the 2 conditions that Mother had set to belong to the new group of New Idea. This is naturally only the minimum of initial self-training necessary for those who have yet to cast the whole trend of their thought and feeling into the mold of a higher life and to enlarge the egoistic into a collective consciousness. That is to say, the idea was to prepare for a more intensive group life. And apart from the few, when the members of Sri Aurobindo's household, we learn that a few youths from the Cercle Sportif, the club, local club, they joined, and it functioned for some time. The society has its headquarters at Pondicherry with a reading room and a library. A section has been founded at Karikal, and others are likely to be opened at Yanam and Mahe. That was the first announcement. And the Arya went on as another activity. The Aryan stores was opened, a kind of a store where many things were being sold. And Mother, I am told, used to supervise all the accounts. But the man in charge, Saurin, was very lax in his collection of dues. And it was not a very glorious financial success. How did they live? We have only accounts of people who shared their life. And Nolini points out that they were all used to sitting on the chairs. When Sri Aurobindo would sit on the chair, a few chairs would be spread and they would all sit like equals. It was when Mother came, he says, that she never sat on a chair in his presence. She always sat on the floor. that naturally brought about a change in the behavior of the youngsters. She never accepted to accept the same status as the teacher. During this period, Sri Aurobindo says that he received help from mother. He had, of course, done sadhana, yoga. He says that when he came from within, a program was dictated to him, and he had followed it. And he had come to a certain point, but he could not reach help to others. And it was there that mother's coming made a difference. It is also during this time that mother records how she told Sri Aurobindo that she sees things forming themselves in the supermind, but they were not touching the earth. So she asked him, will they do so? Will they do so now? And Sri Aurobindo said yes. And at that very moment when he said yes, she saw them realizing themselves on earth. He says that was the first time she saw how a direct miracle could be effected on earth. Another question that she asked Sri Aurobindo was about samadhi. When she was in France, she had read naturally about samadhi, trance, the state and the experiences of people, how they would go into a state of bliss. But when they came out, they wouldn't remember anything. So she was wondering why she'd never had it. And she was thinking there must be something lacking in her that she could not experience that state. So she asked Sri Aurobindo about it, and Sri Aurobindo explained to her that it only means you go to a state of unconsciousness. There is an unconscious part to which you transit from the conscious part. You don't have a consciousness corresponding to that unconscious state. And that is why you don't remember. Then mother told him, I never had it. And Sri Aurobindo said, nor did I. So that was the last time that she thought of samadhi as something wonderful. And as you know, Sri Aurobindo always played more importance to sahaja samadhi, the state of the consciousness of trance, while at work, in daily life. And there should not be a gulf. And there is another recollection that mother made during this period, that even from very early days of her sadhana, she had sensed two dangers. One, of mistaking any asuric being to be the divine. Second, of mistaking her own movements from the lower self as inspirations from the divine. So she was very careful and never asked anybody or accepted anybody's advice or instruction. It was only, she says, when she met Sri Aurobindo that she was convinced that he is divine. And then she said, it's my whole being accepts him. If it is a mistake, well, it is a mistake of the whole being. And then after, she had no problem. He was the first person whom she accepted wholeheartedly as divine. And she says, to meet Sri Aurobindo was like entering into the infinite. He was so soft that the experience was ineffable. These are some of our observations that have been recorded by people around. And so the year went, and in response to the call from France, they had to leave. They waited till February 21, 1915, Mother's birthday, February 21, 1915, and left on the 22nd, again via Colombo. On their way to Colombo, I believe they halted in Madras, the Theosophical Society, and then took the boat in Colombo. Why did the mother have to leave? Why did she go? And how did she go? These are matters of speculation. Though she did let drop a hint or two on the question. Perhaps we may recall them next time we meet.